Hello and welcome to the Essex Boys Murder Case Part 9. Before watching this video, I recommend you start watching Part 4 onwards on YouTube, as these videos are all about the key individuals and the murder victims' movements on the day of the 6th of December 1995. Before we start, we have a quick mention to the Facebook page called The Real Essex Boys Murder Club, which is in capital letters. And if you're interested, please feel free to join, as there's some great people on there with a lot of knowledge on this subject. So let's have a quick catch up of where these key individuals are as from the last video. We have Sarah Saunders at her mum's address in Kingswood, Basildon at 1 to 1:30 p.m. Nipper Ellis at his address at Swanage, Dorset at 4 to 4:30 p.m. Tony Tucker, Pat Tate and Craig Rolfe and Peter Cuthbert on Gordon Road at 2:30 p.m. Jack Wilms and Mick Steele at the Sorrel Horse Pub, Ipswich at 2:52 p.m. and Darren Nichols in Sunbury-on-Thames in London at 1 to 1:30 p.m. So today we're going to be going back to a key individual we've mentioned before, a Darren Nichols. We have Darren Nichols at the Sunbury-on-Thames up to 1 to 1:30 p.m. according to a work colleague at the time, a Colin Bridges. So according to the statement of Colin Bridges himself, Darren Nichols, Francis Reed, Clive James and another male were all working at an office block which was being refurbished in the beginning of December 1995. So as we look at the phone logs for that day, we can see Darren Nichols uses his mobile at 12:51 p.m. to ring Mick Steele's landline. Then at 12:52 and 12:53 p.m. he phones Mick Steele's mobile. Then at 12:54 p.m. he phones Mick Steele's mobile again. What the conversation was about we just don't know, but it is Darren Nichols contacting Mick Steele. At 12:59 p.m. Mick Steele uses his landline to phone Jack Wilms on his mobile. Was this the call to tell Jack Wilms he would be setting off from Clacton-on-Sea and he would phone him when he arrived at the Sorrel pub near Jack Wilms's place of work? The next phone log of interest is the 2 p.m. call from Mick Steele's mobile to Darren Nichols' mobile. Has Mick Steele arrived at the Sorrel pub in Ipswich and phoned Darren Nichols to tell him where he is and who he is meeting up with? Was he telling him they were going to be making contact with Tony Tucker and Pat Tate via the payphone in the Sorrel pub, thinking there would be no trace between them? As in the 6 pages of the phone logs we have access to, there's no direct calls between Mick Steele, Jack Wilms or Darren Nichols to Tony Tucker, Pat Tate or Craig Rolfe. The next phone log of interest is at 2:11 p.m. Is this Mick Steele using his mobile to ring Jack Wilms to tell him he has arrived at the Sorrel Horse pub? As we know from my last video, it's about 4 to 5 minutes journey from Jack Wilms' place of work to this pub. Were members of the Canning Town firm there as well? Were they discussing where the murders should take place? Was West Hanningfield mentioned, where the previous drugs cannabis shipment was dropped and the farmer had found it and called the police? This was just up the road from White House Farm, which I'll show you. As you can see, the red marker is West Hanningfield and down here is White House Farm, so they are quite close to one another. And according to the map, it's a 12-minute journey. Did the Canning Town firm not want the farm at West Hanningfield to be the place of the slayings, as they wanted to carry on using that area for future drug drops from a light aircraft? Did they choose White House Farm for the murders to take place instead? Okay, so going back to Darren Nichols and these phone logs, there is contact between him and Mick Steele on the day of the murders. The next phone log we're going to look at is the one from the payphone at the Sorrel pub in Ipswich to Darren Nichols' mobile at 2:52 p.m, which is at the bottom of the screen, I think. Is this the call to tell Darren Nichols that everything is set up for that night? Okay, so we've just gone to the next page of these phone logs, and as you can see, there's a call from Mick Steele's mobile to Darren Nichols' mobile at 3:06 p.m. And a call from Mick Steele to Jack Woom's mobile at 3:08 p.m. So as we can see, there's a lot of short phone calls going back and forth that day. So this is the journey they took back that day between 1 to 1:30 p.m. The red marker is Sunbury-on-Thames over here, and if I just drag this down here for you, this is Rain in Braintree, where they called it the Cock Pub is. So it's roughly about a 2-hour journey. And according to Colin Bridges, when they arrived back in Braintree, they all went to the Cock Public House in Rain. The time was 3 to 3:30 p.m, and they all stayed in the pub for between 1 to 2 hours. And I can recall that when we left the pub, I drove Darren home in his Scirocco, and I remember dropping the third man off in the Golden Estate in Braintree. And then I drove Darren Nichols, Francis Reed and Clive James and dropped them off at Darren Nichols' house. So this is where Darren Nichols lived at the time, which is this one here with the, I think it's a Vauxhall on the grass verge. Just carry on from Colin Bridges' statement. He says Clive James lived nearby, and Francis Reed had his own car, which was parked up at Darren Nichols' house. He goes on to say, I would say that the time we got back to Darren Nichols' house that evening would have been 5 to 6 p.m. I believe I may have had a cup of tea at Darren Nichols' house, then left. The VW Scirocco was left at Darren Nichols' house, and when I left, Darren Nichols and I have no idea what his movements were that evening. I do recall his wife being at home. I cannot recall whether Darren Nichols told me he had to go out that evening, and I cannot help any more with the specific day in early December 1995 when this trip to Sunbury occurred. So that was Colin Bridges' statement, and let's bear in mind he can't recall which day in early December this was, but they were definitely working at that office block in Sunbury-on-Thames in early December. If this was the day, and Colin Bridges is telling the truth throughout his statement, then which statement of Darren Nichols is the truth? As we can see on the map, it's approximately 25 minutes journey from Darren Nichols' house in Braintree, which is the red marker on the screen, and the Mark's T over here is where he said he met, I think it was Mick Steele. So yeah, it's a approximately 25-minute journey. Now, according to Darren Nichols' first police statement, he said he met at Mark's Tea at 6 p.m. So if we had to believe Colin Bridges' statement, he could have dropped Darren Nichols off at his house at say 5 p.m-ish, gone in, had a cup of tea, then as soon as Colin Bridges leaves, he's got 25 minutes to get up to Mark's Tea. Now, in Darren Nichols' second statement, he says he was at the Marks Tea at 5 p.m. And if this is true, Colin Bridges has either got the wrong day or he's lied in his statement. As he states, he dropped Darren Nichols off at his home address and had a cup of tea between 5 to 6 p.m. So I'm going to leave that one out there for you to think about. And I'm going to leave it here for today, people. So let's have a quick roundup of where the key individuals are on this day of the murders. We have Sarah Saunders at her mum's address in Kingswood, Basildon at 1 to 1:30 p.m. Nipper Ellis at his address at Swanage, Dorset at 4 to 4:30 p.m. Tony Tucker, Pat Tate, Craig Rolfe and Peter Cuthbert on Gordon Road at around 2:30 p.m. Jack Wooms and Mick Steele at the Sorrel Horse pub in Ipswich at 2:52 p.m. And now Darren Nichols at his home address round about 5 p.m. Thanks to all the subscribers on here, new and old, it means a lot. And I have started research on my next video, so hopefully it will be up here soon. Don't forget, if you're interested in this subject, why not join the Facebook group, the Real Essex Boys Murder Club. When you type it in on the search bar, please type it in capital letters. Like I say, there's over 3,000 of us in this group and it is growing daily. You can post what you like on there. All we ask is you respect other people's theories and opinions, as we all have our own ideas of what we think happened on that night of the 5th of December 1995. There's loads of content on there with new posts being put on a daily basis. It's not all serious either, as there's some really funny people in the group. If you're watching this, guys and dolls, you know who you are. I would like to welcome all the new members to the group as well. I hope you're enjoying the content on there. And to all the members who've been on for a long time, thanks for all your input. The group wouldn't be what it is today if it weren't for you, so thank you. And last of all, a big thank you to Amy and Danny, who do a superb job in the admin side of the group. I wouldn't have time to make these videos without them, so thanks, girls. Okay, take care, people, and I shall catch you later.